Oh, it seems to have gone live 4 seconds too early. I'm going to preface this intro video. You are going to gag. You are going to puke. You are going to be reciting that line from Billy Madison. I look at this person, Chrystia Freeland, the Minister of Finance, or I forget what she is in Canada. I'll have to double check in her profile. I have a visceral, stomach-turning physical reflex when I see her face. And it's not because anybody is like objectively ugly. She is spiritually nauseating. And therefore, she could look like Cindy Crawford. And I'm sure she would elicit the same gut-turning, stomach-churning, nauseating response that if she looked like what she looks like now. And if she were the nicest person on earth, I'm sure she would be wonderful to look at. With that said, enjoy the verbal diarrhea that you are about to hear now.
Why has your government issued the travel advisory for LGBTQ plus people to the United States?
In case you haven't heard, the Canadian government's got nothing more important to do than issue travel advisories to the LGBTQ plus community to the United States. Look at that face. Oh my gosh.
And was this something you discussed with President Biden, or your government discussed with President Biden first?
So,
whenever it starts a sentence with "so," it's going to be bullshit. So much bullshit is what it's going to be.
someone who has had the real privilege of serving as Canada's foreign minister, I know that our travel advisories are done very professionally.
Did you consult with Biden before issuing a travel advisory to the United States? So, I personally believe that U.S. Americans... I'm trying not to make fun of that woman. She had a brain fart. This woman is a brain fart. Chrystia Freeland. Hey, so did you consult with Biden? I know that the institution of travel advisories have a long history of being well respected in Canada, and I'm sure... Sorry, we're going to have to get through this.
We have professionals in the government.
Professionals in the government?
Whose job is to look carefully around the world and to monitor whether there are particular dangers to particular groups of Canadians. That's their job, and it's the right thing to do. When it comes to the United States specifically,
that's not a glitch. That's not a glitch. This is a woman whose brain does not work. How long was that? Hold on.
Right thing to
48,
do.
49,
When it comes
50.
to the United States specifically,
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
I have personal experience of dealing with a diversity of U.S. administrations and of dealing with American leaders at all levels of government.
When I was a practicing attorney, when I would get verbal diarrhea responses like this from a witness that I would be asking a question to, I would stop them and say, stop right now. What question did I just ask you? Do you remember the question that I just asked you? And then they'll say, I don't remember the question you asked. I'm just off on a tangent. What question did I just ask? And what in the name of sweet holy hell are you talking about right now? We're not done yet.
In all branches of government and with Americans who represent diverse groups across the country, whether it is business or labor or civic organizations.
Diarrhea, just verbal diarrhea.
And that's because our government understands, as every Canadian government needs to understand, that one of the principal responsibilities of the federal government is to understand how to work with our U.S. neighbor. I think our government has shown that that's a priority for us, and that we work hard at it.
Listen to
and that we're able
breathing.
to manage that relationship regardless of the choices that the people.
What the hell is she talking about?
Even as we work hard.
We play hard. Oh no, sorry, that's the other speech.
Even as we work hard on that government to government relationship, every Canadian government, very much including our government,
every
needs
Canadian
to put at
government,
the center of everything
including
we do, the interests and the safety of every single Canadian and of every single group of Canadians. That's what we're doing now. That's what we're always going to do.
This was a hot, steaming bowl of verbal diarrhea that could only achieve the projectile velocity after a morning at Taco Bell. Holy crap. Yes, no, maple syrup. Diarrhea. All right, now. Oh, we're done with Chrystia Freeland having destroyed yet another government institution. Whatever value was ever placed into travel advisories, they've taken it and they've taken a steaming dump on it. It means nothing now. Travel advisories now mean nothing. Emergency things on your phone mean nothing. When I got one that said I had to go into curfew, the liberal Democrat government politicians take every word and deny it of meaning. They take every institution and desecrate it of value. And now they've taken yet another thing, travel advisories. Oh, so when they say don't go to Rwanda, don't go to Sudan, don't go to America. I don't have enough middle fingers to extend to the Canadian government right now. All right, with that said, Jenna Ellis is in the backdrop. And look, I'm not going to scold my own audience and I'm not going to shame anybody, period. Everyone is entitled to their opinion. I do not block people. I do not ban people, except for the spammers. The spammers get blocked. I find it surprising that people say, I'm not tuning in. Like when Stephen King says, I'm leaving Twitter, we rightly mock that type of juvenile response. I don't like Elon Musk. I'm leaving Twitter. First of all, if you're going to leave because you don't like someone, that's juvenile. If you're going to leave and then you feel the need to announce that you're leaving, everyone says it. Hey, thanks. This isn't an airport. We don't need a departure announcement. But if anybody thinks that you learn anything by tuning out from listening to those that you even think you have an ideological problem with, that's a problem. I listen to CNN and Rachel Maddow not because I like what they have to say, but because A, I need to know what they're saying, and B, you don't get smarter by listening and consuming less. Listening to and consuming less. I have no personal problem with Jenna Ellis. Well, I am going to discuss some of the tweets that I know people have taken issue with, but more and importantly than anything, we're going to get into the DeSantis stuff because Justin Hart is coming on at 2 o'clock, but we're going to talk about the indictment, the bullshit indictment, and whether or not it's changed Jenna's perspective on things. But I just wanted to address it. First of all, everyone's entitled to their opinion. I'm not going to shame anybody and say, how dare you, or whatever. But we're adults. We can listen to people we might disagree with, and you might actually discover you might not disagree with them quite as much as you think you do, which I'm hoping, Jenna actually also realizes at some point. Okay, Jenna, I'm bringing you in 3, 2, 1. Jenna, let's see here. Do we do like this? No, we'll do the broad. I love the backdrop. Is that a real backdrop?
Unfortunately, no. It's totally fake. But,
in that case, forget it. We're going like this.
No, I know it's great though, right? That's the beauty of technology.
Well, it looks good. I was going to say the piano, it's not even an upright. It's like that's a baby grand and you got a fireplace. Although it's going to start.
It looks cozy.
Well, also it's going to start some rumors. Look, Jenna is asking for legal fees while she has a mansion behind her. We're going to get into all of this.
People actually posted that on Twitter and said, "Wait, you have beachfront property? What's going on?" I'm like, guys, this is a Zoom background, but thanks. Apparently, it looks great.
Well, I know you're apparently one of the accusations is also you're a member of some Disney club, which I don't know what the financial requirements are to get into.
And I'm not even a member. Friends of mine are, and we went for fun while I was in LA because I was promoting the movie of political persecution against pastors, by the way. And so we just went for fun, had lunch and left. And apparently though, that's that makes you persona non grata, and people just infer everything. And it's amazing what I learn about myself on social media.
Well, we're going to get into some of it right now, but let's say you've had a rough month, right? The indictment is one thing, and now you got the hurricane, which is hitting you guys, I think, further up northwest more than it is south central Florida. You're doing okay with the hurricane?
I am. I'm thankfully, I was not in part of the evacuation area. And so I am okay. And I got a lot of great advice from a lot of people on social media because this is my first hurricane as a Florida resident, but doing okay. So glad you are too. So I guess you're further south. South,
and we're like mid. So we're not on either coast directly. So it sort of adds a little protection. Okay, well, let's jump right into this because I know you got something at, we got 50 minutes. We'll be good. The indictment, Jenna. So now for those who don't know who you are, once upon a time, Trump counsel, And now you're reaping all of the, I don't know, the benefits, or you're reaping all of what that sows to have represented Donald Trump. 30, just very quickly, who are you for those who may not know? And then let's get into this indictment.
Yeah, well, I'm a lawyer, and I'm someone who has always loved the U.S. Constitution, and I practiced law in Colorado, both as a prosecutor and then as a criminal defense attorney. I got more into constitutional law and the philosophy, especially behind that. I taught constitutional law and legal studies for undergrads at Colorado Christian University. I wrote a book in 2015 titled The Legal Basis for a Moral Constitution. It was a guide specifically for conservatives and Christians to understand America's founding. I'm an allied attorney with the Alliance Defending Freedom. I've previously been special counsel with the Thomas More Society. That's how I represented Pastor John MacArthur, Grace Community Church, and several other churches in the midst of the insane COVID narrative that attempted to lock down churches and that whole petty tyranny. And some of those pastors actually were jailed for their faith. And so one of my clients, and probably the most famous, of course, was Donald Trump. And so I was invited initially to be a surrogate on his campaign team. I didn't initially support him in 2016. I didn't know him other than from The Apprentice. I was initially a Ted Cruz supporter, like a lot. And then I heard him speak and became a huge fan. I supported him. I voted for him. I encouraged my fellow Christians to vote for him, especially against the known evil quantity of Hillary Clinton. And then as soon as he appointed Justice Gorsuch, that really validated my vote. And so I continue to do that in my personal capacity. I was invited to be a surrogate for his 2020 campaign. And then through that, apparently he saw me advocating for him through the Kavanaugh hearings on television and called me up one day and said, hey, Jenna, how's it going? I see you on TV. You have this big, beautiful title, constitutional law attorney. I love it. It's huge, and it was great. And it was amazing to me that he called me. We talked for about an hour. He invited me to DC and I said, I think you're a brilliant lawyer and I want you to work for me. So I accepted that opportunity. I became a senior legal advisor to his 2020 reelection campaign and then personal counsel to him. And so for those who really didn't know me before the post-election stuff, I was working for him directly leading into the first impeachment. So I was on the legal team. My role and responsibility was not to argue down on the Senate floor, but to go on television and write the op-eds and to advocate from a legal position. I was helping then Press Secretary Stephanie Grisham with all of this stuff. So I was a member of his team long before all of this stuff. And so for the people who just say, well, you've lost every case you've ever represented on. Well, first, I was never attorney of record in any of those cases. And also the post-election stuff was not my first go around with anything Trump related or any of this weaponization of government against him.
Well, first of all, anybody who says you've lost cases as a lawyer, I mean, great. If you only take cases you win, you're not one heck of a lawyer to begin with. And the only people who say that are idiots who have never practiced. Respectfully submitted to anybody who I like that might have said it. It's not a legitimate source of critique. If you don't lose cases, you're not taking hard cases. Well, let's just, first things first. Southern law says Jenna killed the mugshot. I'm going to ask you about that in a bit. And I'm bringing this up right now because it's going to be relevant. Jenna Ellis is now a DeSantis supporter. The biggest issue is her slamming Trump for calling DeSantis a backstabber. He is. Okay, before we get into that, you were representing Trump, and Jenna, you're a lawyer. If I ask you a question that you should not or cannot answer because of what's going on, just let me know.
I will. And I don't want people to infer into that, by the way, because I've been asked a ton of questions that genuinely I wish I could answer. And I think that as my lawyers continue to file pleadings, those will speak for themselves. But, there are a lot of rumors, assumptions, presumptions. We all know what it means to assume and what that makes people. And so I would just say, for what I can't say right now, because I want to be a good client, please don't infer anything into that from any direction.
Well, and it's also like people have to apply equal logic and equal reasoning. Trump can't participate in the debates. Many argue because if he says something to Pence, it might be witness intimidation. So in as much as you don't want to infer cowardice from Trump for not debating, you can't infer malice for Jenna, who's facing an indictment for not making statements publicly. Though we're going to get into that because what it means for Trump to have not bailed out Harris and Floyd, but we'll get there. Take a note. So hold on. Okay. So you were the attorney of not attorney of record, but counsel to Trump. You're there to provide legal services, legal opinions, advocate in the court of public opinion. You do so in the context of the 2020 various contests, many of which were not actually Trump personally instituted proceedings. We saw what happened to them in terms of not being heard or being heard, yada, yada. But then afterwards, you start facing ethics complaints. And I'm trying to get into contextualizing your move away from Trump and to support DeSantis. Whether people like it or not, they should understand it. After you represent Trump and vigorously, publicly, with all that entails, what ends up happening to you professionally?
Well, so people need to realize that as soon as Trump leaves office and the January 6th committee starts, and then the 65 Project and other people start weaponizing the bar associations against us, I'm not Trump's only lawyer by far. I mean, there are hundreds of lawyers that participated in this. I may be one of the most prominent, but there were also a lot of lawyers throughout his entire administration, and for various reasons didn't want to represent him because he was so politically loved or hated. And so a lot of people, especially in the aftermath of the 2020 election, one in particular, she was actually, I believe, an attorney of record in Pennsylvania, and called the team and said, I can't do this anymore. I'm getting intimidation and threats. I have kids. I can't do this anymore. And she stepped back. And, for me, that type of intimidation that was simultaneous to a right of my client to petition the government for redress, to have free speech, to challenge election results in the margins of the Constitution, to have that type of intimidation tactic, even back then, for the lawyers, was absolutely fundamentally un-American. And so I stood by him. I was willing to be his attorney and to represent the claims of the campaign itself. And, so a lot of people had a lot of different theories. And that's one of the biggest myths of this whole thing, is that, everything that anybody thought could be associated or affiliated with Trump or his campaign. I said back then, that's totally not true. But the intimidation tactics started way back when I first started representing him personally. I mean, I was getting death threats. I've reported, I've had to report many of those to the FBI, to the Secret Service at the time. So that started simultaneously with my representation. Once I concluded, and no, I was not fired by Donald Trump. We're still actually friends. And I concluded my representation like a lawyer does. And on January 15th of 2021, I sent a conclusion of representation letter that every lawyer out there knows that you do. And you say, thanks, my representation has been concluded. Now outstanding matters. And that's actually public record. And then moved forward with my life. And, I've taken other clients since then. But then after that, the January 6th committee, of course, is organized. And I think, against the rules and all of those types of arguments. But I was subpoenaed. I had to get a lawyer for that. I've been subpoenaed as a witness to multiple civil cases. I was a defendant. Thankfully, we got that dismissed. But all of these things require a legal counsel for me. And then also the bar complaints. I think it's something like 50 by now that have been filed against me, totally, in my view, frivolously, trying to go after my livelihood, my reputation, my credibility, simply because my former client's name is Donald Trump. So I've had to defend a lot of this, even well before this indictment.
Jenna, I'm going to bring up a chat, not to agree or disagree, and certainly not to needle you, but you obviously know what people are saying in any event. You betrayed Trump, you deserve everything you get. Now, I want to flesh this out a little bit, because whether people agree or disagree, some people might do good to walk a mile in your shoes and at least understand how you might feel. You end up getting a complaint, an ethics complaint filed against you, to which you negotiate a settlement and agree that some of the statements you made were factually incorrect.
Misrepresentations.
Misrepresentations. No,
that's a key. There's not the word false. The word lie is nowhere in that stipulation.
Understood. But people are, first of all, I mean, I said at the time, some people said bearing false witness to yourself is in and of itself a problem. And if you think you're going to placate the mob by doing that, well, it's going to come back and bite you in the ass, like I suspect it is now. But misrepresentation. So let's just we'll agree. We won't nitpick over that qualification. Misrepresentations. Some people are going to say what you said were not misrepresentations. You did it to save your license. It was a cowardly move. And look where it got you now, because it didn't even placate the mob. And some people are going to hold a grudge against you for that. What's the response to that in terms of whether or not you bent the knee to try to save your license by acknowledging a wrongdoing that you didn't actually think you did?
Well, I can't get into a lot of the specifics there, and I wish that I could. But what a lot of people need to understand is that there's so much more going on behind the scenes here. And we're seeing that being fleshed out with the Georgia indictment and now with the indictment from the DOJ as well. And so under the rules of professional responsibility, if a lawyer's license is targeted, we are allowed to provide some privileged communication in order to defend ourselves. And I chose not to do that because I knew, and part of my calculation in this was that I wanted to protect my former client from these, what, could be coming down the road and eventually did come down the road. And so part of this and not going to a fuller hearing is because I didn't want to reveal what was not mine to reveal. And so even though I could have, under the rules of professional responsibility, for anybody who says that I'm not still defending my client's interests, have absolutely no idea what the rules of professional responsibility allow in various contexts, and they have no idea the bigger picture. And I'm not going to go into some of the bigger picture, but what I can say is that anyone who thinks that somehow I betrayed my values, or I, am doing this for, for my own sake, or, something like this, that's totally just, you're only looking at what the media is telling you. And I wish that I could give you the fuller story. And people aren't going to say, okay, well, your defense then is trust me, bro. Well, if that's not good enough for you, then that's okay with me, because my obligations, of course, are to make sure that I always do the right thing. I have counsel that's advising me very well. And if that's not good enough for people, my goal is never to placate the mob. People are going to love or hate me. They're going to love or hate Trump. They're going to love or hate whatever based on their own potential misinformation or the sources that they believe. There's so much out there that I look at every day and I think these people have no idea what they're talking about. And I'm not here to correct every single misnomer or every single, false thing that's put out on social media. My job is to make sure that I am principled and that I continue to rely on advice of my counsel that has my best interests. And for the people, like that one person that you just brought up that says, she betrayed Trump, she gets everything she deserves. I would ask you to consider, where are your principles in that? Because if the principle that you're adhering to is loyalty to Trump at all costs, that's not the principle that I adhere to. I am a Christian first, and I am a constitutionalist. My values and my principles are in line with truth, and to make sure that I am always representing my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. And so if, for example, Trump, like he said years ago, if I shot somebody on Fifth Avenue, I wouldn't lose any support. Let's just say, for total hyperbolic reasons, that actually happened. I would condemn that. And I would say, I'm not going to support that. But people are literally out there saying Trump could do anything and we'll still support him. That is unprincipled. And so if you don't want to support me because you disagree with me, you're entitled to disagree with me. But if you don't support me and the weaponization and targeting of government against me simply because you disagree with my political perspective, guess what? You're a leftist. That's not what genuine conservative Americans do. There are so many people I disagree with. I disagreed with Donald Trump all the time on different things, but that doesn't matter in terms of how I did my job as an advocate and as a lawyer. I mean, we've all disagreed with our clients. If the principle was you have to agree 100% with the person, then the only person I think that I would ever support is myself, because I agree with myself 100% of the time. I never agree with anyone 100% of the time.
I can't even pretend to agree with myself 100% of the time, but fair answer. And now I'm going to ask the flip side of this question, and then we're going to end it on YouTube and go over to Rumble, and then the answer will be there. There are some people who are going to say you felt slighted or abandoned by Trump. And for some people to say that and then not understand how some people can actually feel that, where you had counsel who went to bat, got death threats, got doxxed, got harassed, then had their licenses, gone after by the mob, and some of them, you may agree or disagree. You might say this is this is the injury that you have to take for the battle. Some of them feel that Trump did not defend them, didn't come to their aid and assistance whatsoever, left them out to dry, and that, some people say, is you, a woman scorned, who has now gone to the dark side, Team DeSantis. Can you answer that? But before you do, everyone on YouTube, get your butts over to Rumble, because that's where the answer is going to be in 3, 2, 1.